They were young, terrified, and on the eve of June 6, 1944, more than 150,000 of them were crammed into the suffocating bellies of ships and landing craft, tossed around by a restless English Channel. A lot of them had never seen combat. Some had never even been on a ship before. They were a mix of boys who'd fudged their age and men who'd left behind farms, factories, and families. Now, they were all clustered together on the damp English coast, their camps sealed, their letters home censored. They were about to launch the largest, most complex, and most dangerous amphibious invasion in human history. The tension was just crushing. The whole operation had already been pushed back a day because of terrible weather. They only had one more day before the moon and tides would shift, slamming the window for the invasion shut. The men were seasick, on edge, and knew they were about to jump straight into the teeth of Hitler's Atlantic Wall. They knew the enemy waiting for them on the beaches of Normandy wasn't just some conscript army, but a force that was, in their own commander's words, well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. They knew many of them wouldn't see the dawn. In the silence between orders, in the groaning of the ships and the slap of the waves, one question had to be echoing in every single mind. Will this even work? But their commander, Dwight D. Eisenhower, the supreme commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, knew that victory hinged on more than just bullets and bombs. It hinged on belief. It depended on turning the raw, corrosive acid of fear into the tempered steel of resolve, and he forged that belief with a single, powerful message. A message so effective, so perfectly engineered, that it's become a masterclass in leadership. So what was it about his D-Day message that turned fear into focus and kicked off what he called a Great Crusade? In this video, we're going to dissect the hidden genius inside Dwight Eisenhower's Order of the Day. We're not just going to read it, we're going to dismantle it, piece by piece, to show you the specific emotional triggers and rhetorical moves he used to mentally arm his soldiers for the fight of their lives. You're about to learn the genius behind the words that launched the Great Crusade. Before we can really get the genius of the words, we have to feel the crushing weight of the moment. This wasn't just another battle. By 1944, the tide of the war had started to turn, but it was a fragile shift. The Soviet Union was grinding the German army down on the Eastern Front at an unimaginable cost, and Allied forces were fighting their way up through Italy. But Nazi Germany still had a death grip on nearly all of Western Europe. To break that grip, the Allies had to pull off something that had never been done on this scale, a cross-channel invasion against a heavily fortified coast. The pressure on Eisenhower was immense, almost beyond comprehension. He wasn't just a general, he was a diplomat, a politician, and a strategist, trying to hold together a massive coalition of egos, nationalities, and competing priorities. He'd spent months overseeing the absurdly complex planning for Operation Overlord, a logistical puzzle that involved more than 2 million people. And he knew the risks. Everyone remembered the disastrous Dieppe raid in 1942, a smaller amphibious attack that ended in catastrophic losses. It was a bloody lesson in just how hard this would be. The Germans had spent years building the Atlantic Wall, a network of bunkers, machine gun nests, and obstacles designed to turn any landing into a slaughter. Eisenhower's own intelligence units predicted horrific casualty rates. The airborne troops dropping in behind enemy lines were expected to take heavy losses. In the final hours, after making the gut-wrenching call to go despite the iffy weather, Eisenhower admitted to his driver, "I hope to God I'm right." This wasn't bravado. It was the honest confession of a man holding the lives of hundreds of thousands, and maybe the fate of the free world, in his hands. It's from this crucible of pressure, doubt, and historical weight that the Order of the Day was born. This wasn't some last-minute memo. It was a document that had been in the works since February, meticulously drafted and revised. It was a piece of psychological warfare aimed at his own army. Eisenhower knew he couldn't just erase their fear, But what he could do, and what he did with masterful precision, was give them something bigger than their fear to hold on to. So, how did he do it? We can break down the speech's power into three core strategies, with a fourth, crucial element at the very end. Let's start with the most personal one. The first thing you notice about this speech is who it's really about. Right from the first line, soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, Eisenhower makes it clear he's talking directly to them. Seems obvious, but it's a critical choice. The most important word in the whole text is you. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. Your task will not be an easy one. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. This is a deliberate move. He's placing the ownership, the agency, and the power of this moment right on their shoulders. He isn't talking down to them from some lofty perch as Supreme Commander. He's addressing them as the stars of this world-changing drama. This is the classic rhetorical appeal of ethos. It's all about building credibility and trust. But Ike's version is specific and powerful. It's servant leadership. He frames himself not as their master, but as their servant, the one who has prepared the way for their great moment. He's confident because he's confident in them. This act of empowering his soldiers is an incredible leadership tactic. At a time when a soldier feels like a tiny, powerless cog in a giant machine, Eisenhower's words make him the engine. He tells them the whole world is watching them, that the hopes of millions are marching with them. He turns their individual anxiety into a collective sense of profound honor and responsibility. But the real genius of Eisenhower's ethos, the thing that makes his leadership feel so real, isn't just in the speech he gave. It's in the speech he wrote but hoped no one would ever see. Sometime on June 5th, in the middle of all the organized chaos, Eisenhower quietly took out a pen and scribbled a short note. It was a press release, just in case the landings failed. It reads, "Our landings in the Cherbourg-Havre area have failed to gain a satisfactory foothold, and I have withdrawn the troops. My decision to attack at this time and place was based upon the best information available. The troops, the air, and the Navy did all that bravery and devotion to duty could do. If any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it is mine alone." Let that sink in. In his message for success, it's all about you, giving the credit to his men. In his message for failure, the most important word is I. I have withdrawn the troops. My decision to attack, and the gut punch, it is mine alone. This wasn't some public relations stunt to build morale. This was a private act of character that he tucked away in his wallet. It's the other side of the leadership coin. To give all credit for victory to your soldiers while being ready to take all blame for defeat yourself is the ultimate expression of servant leadership. The men might not have known about that specific note, but they knew the man. They knew he was a commander who cared for his troops, who saw himself as part of the team, and who took his responsibility with absolute seriousness. His ethos wasn't just a rhetorical trick, it was real, and that's why it worked. He built a bridge of trust to his men, and when it mattered most, that bridge held. So he's built the trust. Now, how does he give them a reason to fight that's stronger than fear? He does it by defining the very nature of the war itself. The very first sentence of the speech has its most powerful phrase: "Soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force, you are about to embark upon the Great Crusade." Let's just hang on those two words. Great Crusade. He could have said Great Battle or Vital Mission. An early draft even used the much plainer phrase Great Undertaking. But he chose Crusade. That word is loaded with centuries of meaning. A crusade isn't just a war. It's a holy war, a righteous struggle between good and evil, a mission with moral, even divine, purpose. By using that one word, Eisenhower pulls off a masterful act of framing. He instantly elevates the invasion from a military objective, take a beach, to a profound historical calling. This is a direct appeal to pathos, the rhetorical pillar of emotion. But it's not just a cheap heartstring pull. Eisenhower is building an entire moral universe for his soldiers. He's giving them a why so powerful it can conquer their fear of the how. He builds this moral universe with a stark, simple contrast. On one side, there's us. And who are we? We are the Allied Expeditionary Force, sure. But we're also in the company of brave allies and brothers in arms. We are the living embodiment of the hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere. The tide of history has turned, and the free men of the world are marching together to victory. The language is unifying, uplifting, global. It connects every single soldier to a massive worldwide movement for freedom. And on the other side, there's them. The enemy isn't just the Germans. Eisenhower is way more specific. The mission is to bring about the destruction of the German war machine and, crucially, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe. He's reminding them they aren't fighting men just like themselves. They're fighting the physical manifestation of an evil ideology. Nazi tyranny is a phrase that just drips with oppression, brutality, and darkness. This is classic us versus them, but it's used with surgical precision. He's not just creating an enemy, he's defining a villain. And by doing that, he makes the fight a moral imperative. You aren't just fighting for your own skin, or even just for your country. You're fighting for the soul of the world. You're fighting for everyone who loves liberty, for the oppressed people of Europe, and for security for ourselves in a free world. This is what turns a terrifying job into a noble one. It gives meaning to the suffering that they know is coming. When you believe you're part of a great crusade, you can endure almost anything. The fear of dying is still there, of course, but now it's counterbalanced by a higher purpose, the chance to be part of something truly great and good. This emotional armor was just as important as any rifle they carried ashore. But purpose alone isn't enough to handle the rational fear of a soldier staring down a machine gun nest. After building trust and establishing purpose, Eisenhower had one more job to do. Convince them that victory wasn't just a hope, but a logical certainty. Fear is emotional, but it's also rational. A soldier in a landing craft knows, logically, the dangers ahead. He knows the enemy is dug in and waiting. To ignore that reality would be stupid, and it would break the trust Eisenhower just worked so hard to build, so he meets it head on. Your task will not be an easy one, he says, plain as day. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. This is a brilliant move. By admitting how strong the enemy is, he validates the soldiers' fears. He's telling them, I see what you see. I get the danger. I'm not sending you in with false hope. This honesty makes everything he says next that much more believable. And this is where he pivots to the third pillar of rhetoric. Logos, the appeal to logic and reason. Having acknowledged the enemy's strength, he then systematically lays out the case for why the Allies are stronger. He presents a logical proof for why their victory is, in fact, inevitable. He starts with a simple, powerful declaration. But this is the year 1944. That one line is a historical anchor. It's a reminder that the dark days of 1940 and 41, when the Nazis seemed unstoppable, are over. The context has changed. The momentum has shifted. He then backs it up with evidence. First, battlefield success. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man to man. This wasn't propaganda. It was a fact. The soldiers knew about the wins in North Africa, in Sicily, and on the Eastern Front. He's reminding them that the German war machine isn't invincible. It's been beaten before, and it will be beaten again. Second, strategic superiority. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. This is a huge piece of logic. The men in those boats might feel vulnerable, but he's reminding them that for months, thousands of bombers have been crippling the enemy's ability to resupply and reinforce its front lines. They aren't attacking an enemy at full strength. Third, industrial might. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. This might be the most comforting, logical point of all. He's telling each soldier that they are the tip of a very, very big spear. Behind them are the factories of America and Britain, churning out an unstoppable arsenal. Behind them are huge reserves of other soldiers ready to join the fight. They are not alone, and their resources are anything but limited. By laying out this logical case point by point, Eisenhower is giving them a powerful antidote to fear. He gives his men a rational framework to hold on to. When their guts are screaming danger, their minds can hold on to the logic of overwhelming superiority. He brings this logical argument to a thunderous close. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. We will accept nothing less than full victory. The exclamation points aren't just punctuation, they're a declaration of certainty. Victory is no longer a question of if, but when. It's the only logical outcome. If you're finding this breakdown of leadership and rhetoric useful and want more deep dives into the speeches and strategies that shaped history, take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss our next analysis. There's one last element to this masterpiece, and it comes in the final sentence. After building a foundation of trust, purpose, and logic, Eisenhower adds one final crucial layer. He ends with a humble request. And let us all beseech the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking. In our more secular world, this line might sound like a standard throwaway piece of public speaking. But in 1944, to men about to face death, this sentence served a profound psychological purpose. By invoking God, Eisenhower is doing several things at once. First, he's adding a layer of spiritual gravity to the whole mission. He already called it a great crusade, and this line seals the deal. It suggests their cause isn't just morally right in a human sense, but is aligned with a divine, cosmic order. Their fight against Nazi tyranny is cast as a fight on the side of the angels. Second, it offers real comfort. For the many religious men in his command, the idea that God's blessing was being sought for their mission was a powerful source of strength. It was a kind of spiritual shield against the fear of the unknown. It implied that no matter what happened to them as individuals, they were part of something great and noble that was worthy in the eyes of the ultimate authority. Finally, and maybe most subtly, it's another act of humility from Eisenhower. The phrase is, "Let us all beseech." He includes himself. He's not some godlike figure ordering men to their doom. He's a fellow mortal, standing beside his soldiers, humbly asking for divine help in a moment of supreme uncertainty. It reinforces that whole servant leader ethos. It's a quiet admission that despite all the planning and logical certainty, some things are simply beyond human control. This final sentence is the capstone on the entire structure. It wraps the message in a blanket of spiritual gravity, humility, and shared hope, providing one last layer of mental armor before the ramps dropped. Eisenhower's D-Day speech was a powerful blend of leadership and rhetoric. He built trust by positioning himself as a comrade, not a distant commander, embracing shared responsibility, ethos. He then inspired soldiers with a transcendent purpose, framing the invasion as a moral great crusade against Nazi tyranny, pathos. Using logic, he dismantled their fears with evidence of their superiority, turning hope into certainty, logos. Finally, he united all soldiers in a shared prayer for success. Eisenhower's words weren't just motivational, they were a psychological tool, crucial in shaping the victory that followed.